Hello and welcome to the Peace is an Action Verb podcast. I'm here with my friend and colleague Jada Golland. Jada and I have met each other through the workplace. We have been working with each other for, 3 to 4 years now. And so that is how I know Jada. And Jada, I'd like to give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Christine. As Christine mentioned, my name is Jada, and I know her through work. I'm 29 years old. I'm an environmental scientist, and I'm here living in sunny Oakland, California. Yeah, happy to be here today.
Thanks, Jada. Welcome. So you mentioned your age, and I'm just going to pop in and mention my age too, because that is a big part of my experience of you as somebody that brings peace. So I'm 50, so I'm, a good 20 years head start on you in the workforce. And you and I came to our job new about the same time. And I have just been very appreciative of how you bring a sense of calm to the work environment. And to me, that is surprising considering that you are, in my opinion, a very young person. So, of course, age is always relative, but in relation to me. And so I wanted to just ask you a little bit about that because, for example, I think it's not on this list of peace verbs that I have in front of me, but you seem to hold a steady anchor point for the workplace when things get difficult, and as any workplace that has due dates and deliverables and has to work together in coordination, there are going to be moments in time that get stressful. And I have just noticed that you are able to be pretty even and steady through those moments, and was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what's going on internally that allows you to do that.
Sure. Well, thank you. It's really nice to say. Um, I think that at a young age, I've sort of always been around chaos. My first job was working in the service industry. I was a waitress at 16 until I was probably about 23.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I've done a lot of waitressing jobs. And, a restaurant's a pretty busy, chaotic place. You've got pretty, sometimes demanding, sometimes straight up rude customers. And,
Right.
um, in that, I think I kind of learned that there's only so much I can control. And the one thing that I can control is my own reaction and how I can, handle and approach things. And then getting into my first real, like, big girl job, I should say, after college was straight into consulting, where
Mm-hmm.
again, you've got a pretty fast pace, I would say, can sometimes be chaotic environment. And, I looked at how my managers were handling some of our clients and some of our situations. And, you kind of, there's the managers that you look at and you go, I want to be like that. And you have
Mm.
managers that you look at and you say, you know what, I hope that I handle that differently when I'm put in that situation. So I think it's just sort of, even though I'm young, I have had some exposure to it, which
Mm-hmm.
has sure helped quite a bit to get me where I'm at right now.
Right, right. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that you learn. Learning is a piece verb, and
Hmm.
to break that out a little bit into its components, I think the first thing is that you talked about working at 16, so you are being accountable for yourself, right? By having a job as a teenager, holding a job all the way through college, you are being accountable to your own well-being, your own paying bills, and that sort of a thing. And also in the being accountable to yourself, you are also being accountable to your work environment, which includes noticing what kind of environment you're in. So you find yourself waitressing, and you notice, you pay attention and you observe, and those are also peace verbs. Rather than just kind of being aware of yourself, you are aware of your environment. So is there a little bit more to that? Like, just take us back to that waitressing time, if you don't mind. And so I imagine you have to learn, like, well, there's got to be some kind of system, right? So you're learning a system, but then you're also maybe learning which people which people in your environment you need to maybe be kind of quiet around, and which people you might be able to be more vocal around? And I mean, more like in terms of like who you can lean on and who you kind of just need to give a wide berth to. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that I pulled directly from waitressing that are really helpful in how I kind of manage my life today.
Yeah.
So the first one is time management skills.
Mm.
So the first restaurant I worked at when I was 16 was a mock five-star dining room in a retirement home.
Oh
Um,
my goodness.
it was a really unique experience, I think. I actually really loved it. I got to work with a bunch of kids my age and a little older, and it was a fun work environment. Um, and I got to work with the elderly, which is kind of, I should say, exclusively the elderly, which
Mm-hmm.
is sort of unique, I think, in a waiting, in a waitress setting. But because it was a mock five-star experience, they did 5 courses. And with that, you kind of have to learn how to estimate how long a specific table is going to spend on their appetizer, on their soup, on their salad, on their entree, and everything like that. So
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the first learning curve I had, which was okay, how can I estimate time? And,
Hmm.
we're consulting, that's something we do every day.
That's right.
Our own deliverables, if it's coming up with scope and fee, trying to figure out how long a project will take. So that one is a pretty, I think, like point A to point B direct connection.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then I think the other main thing that I took away from the service industry was just learning how to work with people. I mean, a lot of my coworkers in general, I feel like pretty easy to work with. And I think that overall, that's sort of what I've experienced in my consulting jobs too. But the clients can be demanding. Sometimes I would have residents who I, they would order the craziest stuff, honestly.
Uh-huh.
Um, and they would want it immediately. And it would be like, I say crazy, like you just have to run around and spend, I don't know, an unproportionate amount of your time on one table, I guess. And I
Right.
think kind of the same way now, where sometimes I spend a lot more of my day working on one client than I really kind of expect to. But it's nice having that skill set as a backup of knowing, okay, this needs a little bit more hand holding, or maybe this needs a little bit more of a delicate approach when you're communicating with them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's both residents and clients where we have a really nice, easygoing working relationship. And, I can say, hey, how's it going? What's up? And keep it
Right.
more informal. And it just kind of varies resident to resident as it does relationship in my life today.
Interesting. And so you had this opportunity to learn a structure and then to also realize when the structure needed to be deviated from. And so there's something about repetition and patterns that help stabilize a work environment or stabilize any kind of situation where people are interacting with each other. Would you say, like, if you said there's a 5 course meal, and so you had to learn the structure of that, and then within the structure of that you realized where there was going to be a need for play, like in terms of adjusting and changing or veering off of the structure.
Totally. Yeah, definitely. And then one thing I kind of didn't mention too, but also was like learning when I am too overwhelmed and I can't do it. Because I've been
Ah.
sometimes too. I remember it was one of my like later waitressing jobs. I think I was more experienced. I'd probably been, I don't know, working maybe 5 years or so. And I like I found myself crying in the walk-in fridge. I was so overwhelmed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had that other than this one time because honestly, I was very overwhelmed and one table was so rude to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the point where I was like, whoa, I need help. So I grabbed a manager and he helped smooth things over. And I think that was sort of key too, because now I know I can do that today as well.
Right. Like it's you actually do have a team to rely on. And so like
Right.
knowing when it's something you can step up to and you can hold that and then having a sense of when you need to bring someone else in. And
Yeah.
actually, so you and I are part of a we're part of a work team, and I'm going to call it a vertical work team like most workplaces in our society are. There's a hierarchy built into the work production process. And so at different times you have reported to me in that structure. And I would say you have had a really good sense of that timing, of practicing right timing. That's a piece verb here on this list. And just understanding like, okay, now I need to bring in Christine or someone who Christine reports to. Um, and or this is a situation I can handle on my own. So you've taken that general sense of working within a structure, working within a hierarchy from the waitressing job, and then you've applied it to this new job that you have, or series of new jobs that you have had since college.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, so that's great, Jada, and I do really want to appreciate what you bring to our workplace because I have noticed that I'm going to add a verb to the list for you, which is buffer. So if there's like chaos, or craziness in a day, in a moment, I have noticed that you are able to soften those waves and the choppiness, and even with people that you work for. So I find that I will be calmer in your presence than not. And even if I am having to give you constructive feedback, that you are also very able to take that. And so I think that brings up another few piece verbs. Like one of them is make mistake. Like I see you being willing to do that, um, and also being willing to learn and be accountable. And so I don't think that's necessarily a natural skill set for any human being. Was there a process for you in developing those capacities?
Um, I don't know. I don't think I have a process as much as I don't take myself too seriously, and I know that I don't know so much stuff. Um, I think, yeah, I'm not sure that I can really think of a process that would have gotten me to that. I mean,
So it's more of an attitude. You just said I don't take myself too seriously. So there's an ability to detach and maybe like see the play or the absurdity of life in general.
yeah,
And
maybe. Yeah, yeah, I think it's more of an attitude thing.
well, yeah, it's definitely helpful. And
Yeah.
so maybe that's a good segue actually from Jada in the workplace to Jada in other parts of Jada's life. I know that you are also someone that prioritizes play
Yeah.
and being together. That you have a lot of really special friends that you've cultivated relationships with friends in college and then also friends where you are right now in Oakland. And like, so what's fun? What kind of stuff do you like to do?
Um, Lately we've been doing a lot of music related events, which has been really fun. Um, Last week, well, last like 2 weeks has been really music heavy. We won free tickets to a Remy Wolf concert, which was she's an artist. She's really young. She's very like classic Gen Z. But we went because we won tickets through Do the Bay, just like entered a contest.
Uh huh.
And it was a really fun show. So I think that was like on a Thursday. And then we went to Portola Music Festival in San Francisco. That would have been Friday, Saturday. And then today, actually, we're going to head over into San Francisco's Golden Gate Park and we're going to go to Hardly Strictly Bluegrass Music Festival.
Oh, right. That's been going on for like, is that free? I can't remember if that's, or if it's outside lands that's free.
It is free. Yeah, it's free. It's mostly catered towards folk music, I think.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You're speaking back to my youth.
Yeah.
That's the kind of stuff that I used to go to.
So
Um,
we're I'm excited. Jake just got a bike, So we're gonna take Bart over and then bike across the city to get there.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going to be asking you about biking. That's on the list of piece verbs for you. So listening to music. I know listening to music is really important for you.
Hmm.
And something it's like it seems like you have a soundtrack to life. Like there's usually music in your life, right? Like in the
Yeah, and you
background.
probably even observe that when I'm in the office. I like working to music in general. Um,
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's another really special piece verb that you embody is having music in your life. And so we're all coming out of the pandemic. This interview is happening in 2022, or a conversation that is. And so we all remember what the pandemic was like. And so, have you found that these music festivals have a maybe even deeper sense of appreciation in the atmosphere and being
yeah,
able
I think
to.
so. I mean, I've seen some artists that um, I went to one show, I think this was a year ago, about, and the artist came out and he said, I don't know if you remember this, but a lot of you guys bought tickets for this show 2 years ago because I was supposed to play here like on this day in 2019. And he was like almost in tears. He was so excited to be back. And
Wow,
it was,
yeah.
I don't know, it was cool because I feel like the entire crowd was just like, it's so great that you're excited to be back. We feel the same way. We're so excited to be back. So yeah, I think that there has been kind of a new appreciation unleashed.
Yeah, yeah, and there's something about listening to music together, live music together, that is just you can't replicate that experience. You
Yeah, you
know,
really,
yeah.
yeah,
There's something just really visceral and alive about that. So I do notice that you are very active. Like, I know you work really hard because I work with you, and apparently you also play very hard. So, what does rest time like? How does rest time find its way into your routine?
um, I do rest. I mean, I think usually rest for me looks like meal prepping on Sunday
Huh.
and getting myself ready for the week so that I don't have to work very hard throughout the week. Um, setting a little time aside to clean the house and just like getting ready to be already restful as soon as I enter the house. Because like you said, I do like going out quite a bit. Um, I know this sounds not really like rest, but rest for me is making sure that I do get some exercise throughout the week because otherwise my brain will go crazy. I
So
can't
I
do
think
it.
our connection got a little fuzzy just there. So I'm just going to repeat what I think I heard you say. I think you said rest feels like getting exercise throughout the week to support your brain.
Yeah. And prioritizing, like making time for that. And then also rest just looks like usually I would say like a typical work day for me is work, do a little exercise. Ideally, I have dinner already prepped out and I just have to heat it up. And then I'll just spend some time on the couch, watch TV, maybe do a puzzle, just kind of hang out, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm hearing that your youth, your teenage years that you mentioned felt somewhat chaotic in the restaurant environment have really helped you understand the importance of routine
Yeah, I'm
and
a big routine person.
patterns and patterns in your life. So Sunday, so some quiet time on Sunday for food prep, for house cleaning. It's like these self-care quiet times. Like, I imagine that meal prep, like maybe you and your boyfriend are doing that together, but it's not like you're like, hey, 20 of my closest friends, let's all get together in my apartment and prep, prep my meals for the week. So it seems like it's also your kind of be alone time.
Yeah, usually. Yeah.
And the exercise, so that there's be still and move are both on the list of peace verbs. And interesting how the inner stillness of the mind can be supported by the physical motion of the body, and
Yeah.
how you're allowing time for that, and how running specifically is one of the activities that you do. Um, so, what is running like for you?
It depends. So I've got like almost three categories of like where my mind goes for running. Because I do it sometimes alone, and I love running alone. It's maybe my preferred, honestly. Because I think it's the closest I've ever gotten to like really being in a meditative state where I can clear my mind.
Oh, it's
Um,
very meditative. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't always get there. Sometimes my mind is going like, oh, this is hard. I don't want to do this. Sometimes it's focused on something else, but sometimes it can really get cleared. Um, and then the second form of running is Jake is also a big runner. Jake is my boyfriend. So a lot of the time we'll run together. And usually that's just us jogging and chatting and me trying to keep up because he's decently faster than me. And
And
um,
taller too, right?
yeah, his legs are longer. And usually I am trying to keep up, and he will tell me about like the podcast he listened to that day or something to keep me entertained. And then the third form is when we go to our beer running club, and that's a little bit more social, where maybe there will be a group of us running together, and that's like the most leisurely, and it's also probably like the least restful, maybe because it is more um, like hanging out with friends, I should say,
Yeah,
which
I guess when you put beer and running and club into the same like, string of words,
yeah,
it's a little bit different than solo running to clear the mind, but sounds like a
right.
lot of fun.
It is, and the beer comes after the run. I always have
Yeah, I
to,
was wondering. I was figuring that must be the order of events.
yeah. So those are the main times that I go running. Um, Most often now, I usually do like one per week, I should say, like maybe one solo, one with Jake, and we haven't been going to our club as much recently, but sometimes one there too.
Very fun. Very
Yeah.
fun. And so we just talked about running, and I know that biking is also a major piece verb for you. And so, can you tell us a little bit about what biking has been in your life, and sounding like what it might be looking like into the future now that your significant other has a bike as well?
Yeah, biking for me has always been just a way to get around. When I went to college, I didn't bring my car, and when I came home from college, my dad had gotten rid of it. Which at the time I was like, oh, okay, what am I gonna do now? But I had a bike, and I went to school in San Luis Obispo, which is really bike accessible, I would say.
Huh.
So um, got used to biking around there. It's a small town, so it's pretty easy to get everywhere you needed to go. And then I moved to San Francisco, which um, is another place. So you really don't need a car. So
Right.
I didn't get one when I moved up there. I just kind of took Bart and Muni everywhere. I was quite afraid to bike in San Francisco. I was living in Nob Hill, and in the name, it's quite hilly there.
Right.
And on top of that, I just saw there's too much traffic. I just didn't feel comfortable.
Uh huh.
Uh, and then now I live in Oakland, which is, I think, it's just a lot flatter. There's not as much traffic, so I felt safer and more comfortable biking here. So I do bike around town here just to get to work, to get to a friend's house or whatever. But I biked in San Francisco last weekend to the music festival we went to, and I found that biking in San Francisco is actually kind of great. They have a ton of designated bike lanes. Some of them are protected from traffic.
Uh huh.
So I think knowing that, I want to do more San Francisco biking. I think I mentioned to you before we started recording, I'm gonna bike to Golden Gate Park today. And yeah, now that Jake has a bike, I'm hoping we can do some more like leisurely, just sort of fun day rides, I guess, and do a little bit more of that in addition to, I'm sure I'll just keep commuting via bike to go to work and run errands and stuff like that because it's just easier to get around that way.
Yeah, and I think you spoke to a few important things in terms of the process of becoming a bike rider in our very automobile centric urban and suburban environment here in California.
Yeah.
our city, San Francisco, is an older city, and so it's more walkable because when it was built and gridded out, that was pretty much the primary form of daily just getting around transportation for people's lives. But most of California really grew up in the automobile boom, and so our communities tend to be more spread out. And so you mentioned that you didn't really start biking by choice. It was more like, okay, I went to college, I brought my bike, but not my car. I came home from college, my car wasn't there anymore. And so I kind of was like, oh no, but then I just got used to it. And so there's something important about building the habit by getting used to it, right? And so now you mentioned that it's easier. You live in a somewhat flatter city. It's easier to do just like go to your friend's house by bike, to run a local errand by bike.
Yeah.
But there was a certain getting over that hump, right? Like building the habit in a smaller town where it was a lot easier to get around that way, and then just keeping that habit going.
Yeah, and I remember like my first job I got in Slow, my bike ride was it was just from like the campus to the downtown, but I didn't go into the downtown that often. It's probably like a mile or two maybe away, not very far at all. But I remember like looking at it on the map and thinking, I'm gonna have to do this every day. It looks so
It
far. I
looks
was
so
so
far.
scared.
Yeah.
Did it a couple times and I was like, you know what? This is really doable.
I have had a similar, and I was reflecting on this yesterday. I've had a similar experience that we get so used to thinking about, oh, the grocery store, I have to drive to it because I always do, and there's a parking lot full of cars, and that's what everybody does. And so it feels like, how on earth could I ride my bicycle to the grocery store? And then you do it, and maybe you're a little bit out of shape the first few times, or maybe not, but then after you've done it, it's like, why wouldn't I just ride my bike? It's so close, right? But just getting over that sense of the mind shift of it.
Yeah, and two, at this point, I'm like so shifted away from driving cars now. Like, I just think about having to find parking, and I think, nope, I'm gonna bike.
Right, right, exactly. And so just knowing how nimble a bike can be, and how you just have to find some kind of pole to lock it to,
Yeah,
or fence, or bike rack or whatever. So that's great. You're so also great that Jake is now going to be able to join you, so that together time, transit together time, can also look like a bike ride rather than jumping in a car, to
yeah,
have that option.
yeah.
Well, that's cool, Jada. I'm looking at our list here. Um, so we've been talking about balance without actually using the word balance, but you do have a wonderful practice of balancing your life in a way that, even though you are busy and you have a lot of things going on, you do find that rhythm that refreshes you.
Hmm.
And let's see, what else is on this list here? Be warm. I think everybody who is on this podcast has this in common, and you are very warm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we've been talking about this a little bit, but the concept of building community. So how is it that you participate in that actively? Like you could be just living in Oakland and not know a bunch of people, but you actually do have a community of friends. And so what is that like in terms of an action or actions that you take in order to cultivate that?
You know what? I feel like I really can't take too much credit on this. I feel like a lot of the legwork was done for me when I moved here. So I originally moved up to San Francisco. I followed my boyfriend at the time, in a sense, and he had been up here for a year. So when I got here, he had a pretty established friend group already. So I kind of just jumped in that and had those friends in place, ready to be made, essentially. So I've held on to those. I'm really, if you're my friend, you are like my friend for life. I don't let
So
go
so that's
easily.
the action right there, right? It's the
Yeah.
loyalty, right? And the persistence.
I think so, yeah. Even if we go like maybe a year without talking to each other, I feel like I do tend to make the kind of friendships that we can just jump back in and kind of pick up right where we left off.
Uh-huh.
I think, yeah, I don't know exactly what causes that. I think part of it is maybe a little bit of particularness when I'm first making friends.
Sure. So it's like going back to Jada, the 16-year-old waitress, and like and reading the room, so to speak, or reading the crowd, and also, I think going back to your skill set of of it's interesting. You're not a quiet person, but I think what I see you do is you're able to move quietly, so that if there's someone who maybe is best handled with minimal interaction but very politely, I've seen you move in that direction. And then if there's someone who, you know, is handled better, or there's a connection to be more vocal, more participatory, more connected. So I think if I perceive correctly, the first verb there for you is to watch or to observe.
Yeah, maybe. I think so. Um, yeah, I guess. I mean, at the end of the day, too, it's just sort of like be be me.
Yeah, right, right. Be authentic, right?
Right? And if not, then that's okay too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's sort of how the first circle of friends got set up, and then that relationship didn't work out, but I did keep the friends, and then
Which in itself is a skill, right? To find and hold healthy boundaries. That's on the list of peace verbs. So that if you have a breakup and there needs to be more space created between you and someone that you used to be very close to, and yet to also allow that to not sever all of the relationships, which I think is definitely a challenge for anybody that goes through a breakup within a circle of friends.
I think it could be. I mean, thankfully, I think that both of us kind of we didn't like no one wanted any harm to go to the others. I think we both recognized that outside of our relationship, we just are good friends with our friends, and I don't think anyone wanted anyone to pick sides or, you know, have any kind of anything negative with that.
Right,
That was really helpful too.
right, for sure.
Yeah. And then with Jake now, my current relationship, again, we started dating and I was able to just hop in with his friends very easily. And then outside of that, a good amount of people from Cal Poly came up to the Bay Area, so I have that already kind of carried over from college too. So there's not that many people that I've met naturally up here, to be honest. I have a couple close friends I've met through work, mostly my last job, and then a couple of close friends I've met through Run Club. But that's kind of the extent of it.
Well, it's great. It's great that you're able to hold on to those connections.
Hmm.
And speaking of holding on to those connections, another piece verb I have checked for you is eating together.
Oh, eating together. It's
It's like
interesting.
a simple thing, right? But it's important part of the whole spending time together, right?
Yeah, I'm surprised you mentioned that though, just because at work I never really eat with anyone. When I was working in the Walnut Creek office, I would usually just eat at my desk. And then now at the Oakland office, I oftentimes will come home and eat. um,
Yeah, and I guess it's just I think I have that on your list because of the conversations you and I have had about life in general, and so like I knew that you had a social life and that you go out to dinner with your friends, not because I'm like Jada has lunch with me every day at work. No, it wasn't.
yeah, I do. I do go out with my friends sometimes. Um, yeah, I mean, it's nice to get out and share a meal together. It actually kind of is funny timing. So last night, Jake and I went to dinner at a place down the street called Dinner House
Oh,
that we've
fun.
driven by a lot, and I'm always intrigued by it because they have what I thought was a fireplace in the back that looked really cozy, but it's actually a fireplace facade with a TV inside that plays the fireplace loop.
Oh my goodness, that's
But
funny.
we went in, and it is like one of the coziest, most welcoming places I've eaten at in a long time. It's sort of a mom and pop shop. I think that the people who own it are the people who were serving us as well. They're like a husband and wife couple, and they almost went out of their way to come and chat with us and make sure everything was good. And their menu is super homey. It's like meatloaf and spaghetti and cheeseburgers, and it's super eclectic. And the woman working was like, if you're wondering why our menu is so weird, it's just my favorite stuff. I just, whatever I like, I put on the menu.
So very welcoming.
Yeah, it was really nice. I think we'll definitely go back. It was super highly rated on Yelp, and as soon as we sat down, I understood why. It was just like such a cozy little. It's like going to a family dinner, even
Right,
if
yeah.
you know the family. They make you feel like you know them.
That's very special, and it does get at that just like the fundamental peace act of eating a meal together, sharing a meal, and eating a home cooked meal for that matter.
Yeah, I do like a home cooked meal.
Yeah, I think it's on the list of peace verbs. So hey, making a meal from scratch, eating a meal from scratch.
Yeah, that's one thing I think I grew to appreciate a lot. In my last job, I was doing consulting where I traveled quite a bit, and going out is fun for a while, but after a little while, you're like, whoa, I want to know what I'm eating, like what ingredients are going in my food, and
Yeah,
just like make it a little more simple, I guess. I don't know.
simple, healthier. You have some connection to it, like the process of putting it together for yourself, like being
Right.
connected to the food. It's
Yeah.
it's just it's just a very, I don't know, universal
Yeah,
universal act.
I think so too.
And that's actually somewhat related to I think the last category of peace verbs that I wanted to explore with you today, if you still have time here.
Hmm.
Spending time with the land. Like I know that you do a fair amount of backpacking, hiking, camping. So can you tell us a little bit more
Sure.
about the specialness of that activity?
Yeah, I love all those activities. I just like being outside. Um, Growing up, I did a little bit of camping. I was exposed through Girl Scouts, and then we have a really nice beach campsite that's close to my house in San Diego. And one really special thing that I got to do as a kid was my friend's mom, for her like eighth birthday party or something, said, I'm gonna get a campsite for a week right here, and you guys can come and go as you please. We were still in school at the time, so it was kind of crazy to like from school to this little campsite, but it was close enough to everyone's house that you could do that, and you could go home and take a shower if you needed to and then just come and sleep in the tent, and then she would drive us all to school the next day.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was really,
That's
yeah, really fun experience. And then I would say in college I kind of stopped overall. I mean, I didn't have a car to leave that easily, and I didn't have the gear, and I don't think I understood like how accessible it was where I was too.
huh. Uh-huh.
Uh,
And you were kind of busy, wouldn't you say?
Like
You,
also I waitress, so I worked every weekend. So
yeah.
weekends were hard. But I did go on a couple of for school. Cal Poly owns a research ranch in Santa Cruz.
Ah,
So we would go on camping trips there occasionally, which were pretty fun. But yeah, I really love camping, and now I've got all of the gear, and I would say I really ramped up the amount I was going during COVID because I
yeah,
couldn't really do anything
right.
um, other than go outside. So we got Jake's really good at planning, thankfully. So he's very on it when it's like, okay, 6 months out, we're gonna wake up at 7 and we're gonna click the campsite and we're gonna get this really nice spot. Um, and he knows like, okay, we need to start applying for permits now and things like that. um so yeah, I think it was like maybe November 2019 or something like that. We just started booking campsites left and right. There was a point where I was like, I don't want to camp anymore. But now we're going a more regular amount, and that's been fun. I've actually only been backpacking maybe 3 times.
Uh-huh.
I went my first time, I think about 2 years ago, and it was really fun. It was a lot more grueling than I expected, but it's more rewarding too. Um, but I've only gone on one night trips so far. I'd like to do a longer one day.
I'm sure you'll have some opportunities for that living in California.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
all the trails that are here.
Yeah, exactly. And then yeah, we go hiking quite a bit too. I think like one of my perfect days is I just like waking up, going on a hike, and then going to a brewery. It's like one of my happy days.
And so thankfully it's quite accessible to you to do all of those things in one day when you live in Oakland.
Pretty easy. Yeah. Um, it just brings me joy and peace. I think it kind of checks a lot of boxes too for my resting because I do get my physical exercise so my brain doesn't go too crazy. My brain becomes even calmer because I'm just outside and in nature. Um, Something about being in the sun is usually helpful for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
When,
sure being in the sun is also a peace verb. I mean, we get nutrition from the sun.
yeah, totally.
Wow, Jada, thank you. This has been a really fun exploration. Was there any peace verbs that you wanted to add to this, or things that we haven't delved into?
Nothing really comes to mind that we haven't covered. Um, yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks. Thanks. Well, again, I really appreciate your willingness to come on the show and also just the, like I was saying, the calmness that you bring to my life at work. So thank you for all of the behind the scenes things that you're doing that make that possible.
You're welcome, and thank you too. I mean, you are also definitely a very calming presence in the office. It makes it, I think, just nicer for everyone.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I don't always feel like that inside my head, so I don't know if I'm buffering as well, but maybe it's the
Oh,
bike ride.
I also don't feel like that all the time. So, um, just because we feel one way doesn't mean we're not crushing it.
Yeah, and I mean, and the other thing also, I think you and I have been this way for each other. To be forgiving, like when we do have our little moments, like I do appreciate that you have forgiven me for my little moments.
Yeah,
And
me too. I think you and I think are pretty good at knowing when we've kind of like gone a little nuts, you know?
yeah, yeah, we both apologize. I think that's on both of our list of peace verbs.
Yeah, yeah. It's okay. I mean, it's hard to control stress. I think we both do a good job, but I think that at the end of the day, we're human.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's useful, because I wanted to talk to you about peace in the workplace because it's universal. It's not just like our particular line of work that those skills matter, but like as you mentioned, you really honed those skills in waitressing, which, you know, bless all the waitresses of the world. That's some hard work out there. And
Yeah.
just to recognize that there are things that we can do in our own lives that can help ourselves and the people around us on a daily basis.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, great, Jada. Thanks so much.